What's going on, guys? I'll be with I'll Be Fitness Gaming, and you've seen the title of the video. You know why you're here. Domain Zoo. Deck list is going to be in the description below. Okay, so we are on the draw. We can have Domain, a nice little Kavu. We got a lot of burn spells. This hand looks decent. It's decent. Alright, so we're going to keep this. Opponent thinking here. So yeah, we're just gonna go with the Savai Triome. Well, it depends. What we're gonna do is we're gonna play a land, Windswept Heath, because we're not going to be well. Do we? What else? How can that go wrong? Okay, Garden Scales. So these bolts are gonna come in handy. So we're actually going to play the Wooded Foothills first. And the reason for this is, and it's funny because we actually drew the card, but I was going to say the reason is because if we draw Stubborn Denial or anything, Wooded Foothills can get us Steam Vents, which is going to get us a red or a blue. And we may need to deploy one of these. So they got nothing here. A Remand. So we can't sit around and do nothing, so we're going to cast Kavu here. If I had Breeding Pool in the deck, to be honest, I may consider grabbing not Breeding Pool, Stomping Ground, even though we can't play our blue spells, because since we have so much red mana, so many red spells like Lightning Bolts, having 2 red sources would be really good here. Alright, so let's see what they do here. As long as they could only play like 1 threat a turn, we should be fine, because we can deal 1 for 1. If we draw another land, then we're cooking with gas. Preferably a fetch land. Nice, create a... Okay, so the question is... do we want that thing to die? Then it's going to create a token. But we can also take this. So we're going to attack here and just see what they do. What do we get rid of here? We have a pretty stacked hand. But we can't. Do we get rid of the Remand? Or the Stubborn Denial? I think the Remand. Okay, that changes a lot of things. That changes a lot of things. Whenever you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter, so they're going to get 2 counters. Create 1/1. Okay, so we're gonna take this now. If we draw another red source, we could just kill them. Yeah. They're a pretty... Draw a card. Yeah, they were pretty dead. Alright, so opponent just quit the match there. Unfortunately for us. They were out pretty quickly. But let's go over the deck here. So, the mana base, still the same. The breeding pool, the 1 breeding pool. As for our black source, we have Overgrown Tomb. I have seen other players play Blood Crypt. I like having my green sources because of the creatures. most of your creatures require green. That's why I have the Overgrown Tomb over the Blood Crypt. Other than that, I'm not sure why you would want to play Blood Crypt over Overgrown Tomb. But I'm also going to say, like, I've never really tried Blood Crypt. I've never felt like I needed it. But there are games like that one where, because we have so many red spells, you're like, man, I wish I had another red mana, I can see why Blood Crypt is there. The times where I've had to fetch out Overgrown Tomb as an untapped source, I've never felt like I needed it to be red. I've always felt like I needed it to be green, but I could be wrong. So if anybody has experienced any other issues or any reasons why you would play Blood Crypt over Overgrown Tomb, let me know. Also, with Overgrown Tomb, it's a lot easier to fetch with our current fetch lands. Because if we have a Blood Crypt, you cannot get it with the Flooded Strand or the Windswept Heath. So then, it just becomes a lot harder to deal with, I feel. But again, I do see people playing it. 4 Flooded Strands, 4 Windswept Heath, 4 Wooded Foothills. We are playing the Savai Triome and the Zagoth. These are going to give you the green-white for Dromoka's command. In my experience, I feel that the mana base is more consistent. It just feels better when I'm playing it. When I'm running the Xander Lounge and I think it's Idada or something like that, Triome. That's the one that gives you, I think, white, blue, and black, I believe. Something like that. But the other Triome. Let me see if... I forgot what it's even called. Let me see if they come up. Triome. No, they won't come up. I have to own them. Anyways, I feel like that mana base is a lot more consistent, at least for me. Maybe because I got used to playing with it. That's how I first started playing Zoo with those. If we were to change those, if we played a different card other than Dromoka's command, we would change our fetch lands. I would change a Flooded Strand for a Misty Rainforest, and I would change a Windswept Heath for an Arid Mesa. Because Windswept Heath cannot get the Xander's Lounge, which is really important because that's one of your Triomes. In this deck, the only land that your Windswept Heath does not grab is your Steam Vents. And Steam Vents is a very important land in this deck, but it's not as important as one of your Triomes. That's another reason why to play the Sivir and the Zagoth, because you have more consistent... All your fetch lands can get them. And that's extremely important for this deck because you don't want to be in a position where you have an opening hand, and let's say you're playing the Xander Lounge and you need it, and you have Windswept Heath, right? But there's been situations where I need a Steam Vents, and this is what I have. So, but it's a 5-color deck, so you can't really complain. Stubborn Denial, this card is key in the deck. When I first started playing Zoo, I wasn't playing Stubborn Denials. I was playing like Ren and 6 and Lightning Helix. I was just really more of a Zoo deck, but because I really wanted to see how the deck works, but the more I would play the deck, and the more I realized, Stubborn Denial, the way this deck wants to play it wants to land the threat, then it wants to protect the threat, and it just wants to buy time to finish the game. It can finish the game really quickly. You want to clear the board with your removal and also finish the game quickly by going to the face. So that's the game plan here. So efficient, cheap interaction with big creatures that end the game quickly. That is just the straight up plan that you're going for Stubborn Denial. Is just a beast in this deck. Of course, Lightning Bolt, a staple. Ragavan, creature's just insane. It allows you to, if you connect with Ragavan and you're able to get a treasure token, being able to cast multiple spells a turn early in the game, because we're so aggressive, is just devastating for the opponent. Especially when you can cast like a Kavu holding up Stubborn Denial. They're not going to be able to do anything that turn or anything that can really stop you significantly. You have removal in case they do play creature. It's a great card. Wild Nacatl, of course. The cat is back in action. Counter Cat. This is a card that at one time was banned in Modern because it was deemed to be too strong. Now it's just mediocre, but I still think this card is extremely good in this deck. I like having the 2 1-drops. I've seen lists that cut the Nacatl. I've tried cutting the Nacatl. I have found that I like playing with Wild Nacatl a lot more. 1, it gives you another threat. 2, you need those early threats, right? Because you need to pressure your opponent early on in the game. Getting, one or two hits in with a Wild Nacatl early in the game can make the difference. A lot of the games that I lose, the opponent's at like 4 or 5. They're very low already. So this helps with that because it helps you close the game with, you know, either you get another Kavu hit in or a Brawler, and then you have Tribal Flames, Lightning Bolt. These early threats really help you get there. Remand, you're basically time walking the opponent. Remand here, you know, I've seen people try like other cards like Mana Leak and other flex cards. I think Remand is really good because it draws you a card, it replaces itself. It also pretty much time walks the opponent depending on the decks that you're playing, and a lot of the times you only need one more turn to win the game. Of course, Dromoka's Command, a very powerful card in this deck. I don't think you need more than one in the deck. I like playing 2, with the second one being in the sideboard because that card could lead to some major blowouts. Tribal Flames, we're playing Domain, 5 points of damage. That can also help clear bigger creatures out of the way, opposing Kavus. It can also help end the game extremely quickly with your beaters. Brawler is another card that, you know, when I first saw it, I just felt like this card seemed underpowered. Domain, 5/3. I originally was playing with Tarmogoyf, but the trample on this card like makes it better in my opinion. The argument is that it dies to Bolt, and sure, the thing that I found with Brawler versus Tarmogoyf is that more often than not, the Brawler is going to be bigger than the Tarmogoyf a lot faster. Tarmogoyf, it takes a lot to put into your graveyard for it to be a threat, but it does go under Bolt, which is good. But, you know, I can see a split between 2 Brawlers and 2 Tarmogoyfs, to be honest. You know, I don't think Tarmogoyf is like a no, like a hard no. I've played with both, and they both have shined, but overall, if I had to pick one for this deck, I would definitely go with the Brawler. I think it's the more consistent of the 2, but I can see a split between 2 Brawlers and 2 Goyfs, or 3 Brawlers and 1 Goyf. Kavu, this card, in my opinion, this and Scion of Draco and Leyline Binding are the 3 cards that pretty much make this deck so good. And then these other are assistants. You know, this card allows you to get graveyard hate. It's a fast clock with Draco. It has First Strike and Trample, so it becomes a crazy threat for only 2 mana. It lets you filter through your deck, get rid of the extra lands and the extra Ragavan, and draw into new cards, which is pretty crazy when you think about playing a Zoo deck, because Zoo decks traditionally struggled with filtering through cards, card advantage. It wasn't into Counter Cat that we started to see counter magic into these type of decks, but these Zoo decks have come a long way, man. It's, you know, I would have never thought that we would have been playing a 5-color Zoo deck that's actually like super good in the format with all the new printing of all these new cards coming together. Leyline Binding is the glue to this deck, in my opinion. This is the card, I believe, that really put this deck over the top, that made it, in my opinion, a tier 1 deck, because, again, some of the things that we would struggle with these Zoo decks if we didn't have any cards to interact with certain things. Leyline Binding covers all that for only 1 mana in this deck most of the time. And then Scion of Draco, just, you know, a flyer, aggressive creature for most of the time, only 2 mana, which gives crazy abilities to the rest of your creatures. So, you know, really solid deck. I really enjoy playing this deck. When I got back into Modern a couple weeks ago, you know, I really saw this deck and was like, this is why I want to come back. There's finally enough cards and powerful cards in Modern right now that make the type of decks that I like playing enjoyable and competitive. Anyways, my friends, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys learned something. If you have any comments or suggestions, comment at the bottom. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. And again, my friend, thank you guys so much for watching, and take care.